24 Minutes with our series exploring innovation and people who are shaping it. Today, we are in very good company with George Ramages, Commercial Director of Sunderland International, who has been directly involved in the operational and international work to the Paralympic context, including the delicate phase that follows the event itself. Welcome, George. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Rosetta. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to speak to you this morning.
Thank you. I believe when the spotlight goes off, an equally important part begins. Dismantling, coordination, logistics, problem solving. Is it often less visible, but it tells us a lot about large-scale events really function behind the scenes. So the public usually sees the competition phase, the ceremonies, the athlete's performance. Much less is known about what happens immediately afterwards. From your perspective, George, what does the dismantle phase actually involve?
You're correct. Most fans just pitch up if they are attending the event live, or they switch on their television or stream and they watch the games and they switch off. We have a way of thinking about an event, and it can be broken into a building phase, an event phase, and a dismantling phase. And the build phase would be where teams come in and set up all the necessary infrastructure for athletes and fans to enjoy during the event. And then the dismantle phase focuses on removing that infrastructure as quickly as possible before teams leave the country or the host city. And the timeline of the dismantle phase would differ based on the type of group. So we typically cater to, if we look at the Winter Olympics, teams of 3 to 220. And of course, depending on the size of that group and what they were doing to support the event, their dismantle phase can look very different. Fans who attended the Winter Olympics would have seen a lot of physical infrastructure. These are sponsor houses, sponsor activations, not only in Milano, but across all the clusters in the mountain venues of Livigno or Cortina, Predazzo, or Tessero. And all of this infrastructure needs to be removed, but almost no trace should remain that they were even there. So companies, as part of their sustainability and social responsibility focus, also make sure that they leave behind only the good memories and none of the infrastructure. And then lastly, part of the dismantle phase for some teams could involve what's called an afterlife project. This is where they, ahead of time, think of how they could partner with local businesses or communities and collaborate to repurpose materials that they've used or donate it for use so that the local community benefits from them having been there.
It's very interesting. Of course, it takes a lot of challenges. I mean, large international events are extremely complex systems. What were the main challenges you had to face once the Paralympic concluded or other major events you attended to?
Yes, the Olympics and Paralympics, for those that don't know, are usually split by a few weeks. And there are teams that leave partially and teams that leave fully. Of course, athletes that attended the Olympics won't be there for the Paralympic Games, but event supplier teams that are providing fencing or screening or power, they will remain throughout the event. And that can be a bit of a challenge in terms of just motivation over such a long period of time for the teams.
Sure.
But what I'd like to say from our side, I think first of all, grazie mille to all of our Italian hotel and accommodation apartment teams. Italian hospitality made both our lives and the lives of our clients so much better, whether it was again in Milano or in the mountain villages. or towns. But there are challenges when it comes to accommodation. As mentioned, some teams are small and stay for a short amount of time. Others can stay for 3 to 4 months, and there will be issues that pop up. Some issues can be cultural. So an
Sure.
example could be where teams are checking out, they are leaving, and they have access keys. The rest, and we had one incident where in pure Italian style, please just leave your key in the door. No problem. You can walk away. However, this team member comes from a different culture and they hid the keys because they didn't want it to get lost and somebody to enter the key into the room. So it ended up being over a week before they were able to find the key, but that was purely just a cultural difference that led to this issue. Another issue that we faced during the games was an environmental issue where if one knows the terrain between Livigno and Bormio, the pass can really build up with quite a lot of snow, and there was really good snowfall for the Olympic Games. And one Saturday night after an event, we had a snowfall, and a team was trapped in a way because they couldn't get to their accommodation in Bormio. So finding a solution at a really stressful time within budget is a challenge when those things do happen. And then lastly, there's the obvious miscommunication, and that can take place where we had a French team urgently contacting us saying they are being kicked out of the hotel. Yet when speaking to the Italian owner, they were simply asking if they plan to leave today, not that they had to leave today. And these miscommunication,
Right.
it is often happen.
Yeah, right, right. Let's stay to this point of the human at the center of everything, because I believe in moments like this, I imagine technical precisions and human collaboration must go hand in hand. How did the different teams work together, especially in this international environment?
Great question. I think it comes down to the attitude. What we experience, no matter what group it is that is contributing to the games, there seems to be a common attitude of people towards problem solving. It's never a language issue that ultimately causes a problem or that will be an obstacle. It's the constant attitude towards making a success of the day, because you do take it day by day. And there's actually a tangible feeling of community, even though you're sitting in a coffee shop, you're surrounded by different people who all face different challenges during the day. But when these challenges often arise, it is about getting onto a call or getting into a meeting or getting onto the ground to make sure that you resolve it as quickly as possible. Because when it comes to a major event, time is a really key factor when it comes to problem solving.
Yeah, I see. I see. It's true. And mm, what something really personal I'd like to ask you. Was there a
Mhm.
moment during this experience that you remember as particularly intense, difficult, or meaningful to you?
I think there were probably a few moments, and the moments that stood out for me were moments where we had disagreement or a challenge, but because we've been working together for a long time on both sides with our properties, where we have a 2-year relationship, and our clients, when these frustrations arise or where something goes wrong, um, that there's never a breakdown, there's never a walking out of the room, there's never the idea that we will stop. No, the attitude continues to remain that we will solve the problem together. So I think the fondest memories are those that where you had a challenge, because now now that the games have ended, we're together talking with clients or with properties, wrapping up things, and there are smiles all around. Yes, we went through difficult times, but they created the best memories, I think.
We go through these
Yeah.
difficult times, and of course people often speak about the success of major sporting events in terms of images, audiences, medals. But from your point of view, what are the hidden indicators of success behind the scenes?
I think for major events, one of the biggest indicators of success is that you never saw anything wrong when you were a fan physically at the venue or whether you were watching online. So we have teams that are facing a number of challenges, and they can range from small things like seemingly small things like bus accidents or luggage not arriving at the airport, demanding work schedules that allow for very little sleep, or snow conditions causing major transportation delays. Yet, making sure that this never translates to an interruption to the fans, to the athletes, and to the broader fan community that are watching via broadcast is the hidden indicator of success, and shows that the games went really well because nobody noticed, yet there were so many problems that needed to be solved.
Yeah, I see. It's really fascinating for me to capture this behind the scene. And I'd like to ask you, what did this experience teach you personally and professionally both?
I think two two major things stood out for me. That when it comes to events of this scale, planning is probably number one. There were many.
Always.
Always, and you always see this information in the media in the build up to a major event. The venue's not ready, or nobody knows what transportation will look like. Um, how are the athletes going to have the best facilities? Um, these issues are obviously part of a plan, but when you plan correctly, it allows for many stakeholders to have certainty and to also work within a budget to make the team success guaranteed, and to make the event a success. And oftentimes, once an event ends, a couple of months later, there's a release of a financial report that actually indicates whether you've been, you've planned really well, at least on the financial side of things. So when we think of an event, planning together with the client based on what they need in terms of support and services, all the way to when they leave that country, were they within budget of what they wanted to achieve? From our perspective, is on the professional side a key focus. And then the second item is probably communication. You asked the question about working with international teams. There's a certain sensitivity that I think you always improve on when it comes to cultural awareness and working across different cultures and different languages as well. And I think that is so key to successful teamwork. You don't know each other personally, and you come together for games that last 16 days, and yet you build true relationships that can last a lifetime. So that personally would be something special to me.
I believe this is really special and really, really interesting because I believe, maybe I'm wrong. Tell me, is there a lesson here that we could also apply beyond the sport, for example, to other international or complex organizational settings? What do you think?
I think you're right. there are often many sayings that sport can teach us so many things, and those that participate in sport from a young age know that it's much more than just the on-field activities. And I think that does filter through not only the sporting world, but also in the wider corporate world and social world when it comes to um, teamwork being um, teamwork being the goal, not winning or losing being the goal, but teamwork being the goal. And that at the end of going through a difficult period, whether it be a game on the field or whether it be successfully planning a project, that at the end, if you walk away as overcoming it as a team, no matter the outcome, that you do forge better relationships and you learn more for next time. So not everything's a success the first time you do it, no matter how much you've trained for it. But that next time there is a way to identify how you can improve.
Yeah, I agree. And we talked about planning, we talked about the coordination, the human at the center. But when we talk about the legacy, from an operational point of view, what remains after an event like this?
I think what made the Milano-Cortina Winter Olympics really important from a legacy perspective is that the operations were executed across multiple cities. There were multiple clusters and multiple venues, some spread 5 to 6 hours apart in terms of transport. And to keep the feeling of the games alive, to have everyone enjoy the games was a real focus to create these hubs where you're not in one city, so you're not all together, yet even though you are apart, you can actually enjoy these games. And we see that with other events that we are working on as well. We are working on the FIFA 26 project, Expo 27, Women's World Cup 27, the Rugby World Cup, and Los Angeles 28. And if we look at even the next Winter Olympics 2030 that will happen in France, the same legacy is continued, that to reach as many regions as possible, yet even though it's spread out, to still create one experience for the fans to really enjoy no matter where they are. Okay, you couldn't travel to Paris or to Nice or to the Alps, but you were able to enjoy the events that took place in your city.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Looking ahead, of course, what do you think future organizer in these terms or international teams could learn from this experience? And if you maybe had to identify one key takeaways, what would it be?
I think, especially for the Winter Olympics, learning how to managing the distances between venues and transportation is um, a key learning to take away from the Milano-Cortina Games, especially as we chatted about, the legacy seems to be a more expansive game as we go on. But at the same time, you also have the environment playing its part, especially in winter games. There are so few venues that have the conditions necessary. And how do you manage people in a smaller and smaller environment, as these towns are very small, but they have a huge influx of people for the games. I think Milano Cortina did very well. There were many smiles on faces. I think there could be greater focus on transportation, getting people in and out, especially during the early morning and late at night. But overall, I think we are learning. That's the part, and the takeaway is there's a large focus on improving,
Hmm.
always doing things better.
George, when it comes to young generation, do you have any suggestion to become an expert in this field?
I think Many young people do gravitate towards sports from their young days, participating in sports. And then sometimes they lose that connection as they grow older. So I would definitely encourage those that are interested, whether it is on the media production side, whether it is on the organizing from the committee, one of your local committees, to get involved with usually the sport that you enjoy. See if you can participate in that. And by doing that, you expose yourselves to learning the challenges that the sport faces, as well as learning from those that are older who know these challenges and have experienced it. But as you become more involved, more opportunities open up for you. Opportunities to participate and then eventually work. So it may be that initially, it's just exposure to the sport that you're interested in. But once you work with enough people, you realize the problems that they face and possibly where you could fit in to help solve them. So I would encourage those that are interested to do as quickly as possible, and then they will find a space for themselves, I think, where they can fit in from a work perspective.
So what emerged from this conversation is that major international events are not only built on what we see on the field, but also on the invisible work of teams who manage complexity, pressure, and responsibility with great professionalism, like you. So I really would like to thank you for our time is up, and thank you so much for being with us. And please follow our channel, and please follow all the activity of George, because they are really, really interesting. Thank you very much. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Rosella, and thank you for the work that you're doing to highlight the work that everyone's putting into major events.
Thank you.